It's hard to be brief, but I'll try. So what brought me here was to talk about my book and the illustrations that I did about Serbia. And then what brought me to Serbia was some family history involving my grandmother and her whole family. They were born in Vienna, Austria. They're all Jews, and my grandmother's aunt married a Serbian man before World War II and moved to Belgrade and converted to Orthodoxy and had a child. And that man's name was Niki Petrovic. He worked in the Standard Oil Company and had quite a prestigious standing in Belgrade at the time. So when World War II broke out, he, in addition to being well-known and affluent, he was also very kind. And so he took pity on my family in Vienna and paid for their passage from Vienna to Belgrade after the Nazis had taken everything from them in Austria. Once they got to Belgrade, they stayed there in his home for under a year, and then things got bad in Serbia, so he was the one who paid for their passage from the coast to the United States. So that's how my family got to the United States. And my great-great-grandmother was too old to survive that journey on the ship, so they hid her in their home in Belgrade for all of the war, which was a huge personal risk to them. And she ended up surviving, and she died of old age in Belgrade. So when I went back, I met some of these relatives that still live in that house where Niki Petrovic lived and where my family was hiding, and his portrait is still on the wall, and just a 5-minute walk from there is my great-great-grandmother's grave. So I went to Serbia first to find out about my family, but then I very quickly found out that my interest and connection to the culture went beyond this specific family tie and is actually much more general, just a general fascination with the people, the way of life, the tragic but also really varied and vibrant history. And so I spent 10 months on a Fulbright scholarship. I was living in Novi Pazar and teaching English. And then when I returned, it was specifically to do illustrations about Serbia. Fulbright is interesting in that you can apply to a country. So you have to apply to a specific country. So I applied to Serbia with this story of my family. And I also studied art, and I'm very interested in Byzantine art and frescoes, and so I wrote about that as well. And they accept you or reject you. I got accepted, and then they place you in a specific town or city. Yes. I thought I was going to be in Belgrade. I thought I was going to be living with my family and getting to know Belgrade, and then I was put in Novi Pazar, which actually turned out to be really wonderful for me because it was a crash course in the complexities of Yugoslavia and how these cultures fit together and how they don't, and religious differences and all of these things. So I loved my time in Novi Pazar, but when I returned, I knew that I wanted to live in the capital city. When I went, I didn't think that I would be an artist. I found my calling or career, whatever you want to call it, as an artist while I was living in Serbia. I was applying for graduate schools in literature when I went to Serbia because I don't have any training in art. I studied literature and art history in school, and I was very much on the path to research. So when I went to Serbia, I was applying to graduate schools in Renaissance literature. And while I was there, living in Novi Pazar, I just felt this need to explain to my family and friends back home what I was seeing. And I just felt like writing and pictures weren't cutting it. They just seemed kind of dry to me, and I wanted a more vibrant way to show what I was seeing, and I also wanted to be able to control it more, because when you show someone a photograph, you don't know what they're going to pick up on. And when I do an illustration, I can take the one old woman sitting on a bench and only draw that and take everything else out, so I can really control how people are seeing to make it match what I'm seeing. So I started doing these illustrations just for myself, and I started a little blog, and I would post them. And then I discovered that I was spending all of my time drawing. I mean, I would teach my classes, and I would just go back to my apartment, and I couldn't wait to start, and I wouldn't leave for hours. And then it kind of started clicking. Maybe this is more than just a hobby. Maybe this is more than just something that I do while I'm here. Maybe this is a lifetime occupation. And it finally clicked when I was visiting my relative in Belgrade. She's 83. She's very direct, and she yells a lot. And I was telling her, I said, oh, I think I want to be an artist, but I'm so nervous. I mean, I can't make money. It's just really scary. And she dismissed me, and she said, if you're really an artist, you just do it. It's either you are or you aren't, and you'll know if you are. And in that moment, I think I kind of realized that I was.
So we're recording this in Lake George here on a Christmas ski trip to Gore. And you had a couple of days to interact with my friends here, some from US, some from Canada. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious as to what are your impressions of us here, people who have been living here for 10, 15, 20 years, versus Serbians that you met back in Serbia?
I guess the brands of clothing people are wearing are different, but I mean, there's this really strong thread that runs through the culture that to me seems uninterrupted. I mean, when I was sitting downstairs, the table is covered in food and everyone's sharing everything and it's always loud, and when the music starts, people start clapping and singing and clapping each other on the back. I mean, those things, I think, are, I don't want to say exactly the same, but remarkably similar. It would be interesting to see how the next generation absorbs or rejects the parts of the culture that have trickled down from their parents. But I really overwhelmingly feel in this hotel in the middle of the United States that I'm in Serbia. No, thank you so much. I mean, it's really nice. I've been missing a lot of parts of Serbia and parts of the Serbian mentality. And so it was nice to share Ivar and drink with you guys and just have a good time.
Great. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.